Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life on Life's Terms podcast. It's episode 55. My name is Kenny. I'm your host today, and we have the amazing Lucie Leduc with us. We're going to get into some things about my retreat to the Star of the North, where I spent a weekend in sober October. Some of the training involved to become the director of the Star of the North, and what it's like in this type of industry. But before I get into this conversation, I have some bills to pay. Shout out to Liam Connolly at Connolly Law for all your Canadian law, will estates, and media issues. Google Liam Connolly Law. For all your counseling needs, such as addiction, family counseling, please Google adars.ca. The famous Chris Suchet will be able to accommodate you through Skype, FaceTime, for your mental health needs. So I'd like to welcome you, Lucie, to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. I had such a good time at that retreat that I went to. Mm-hmm. I was nervous going in, and it was the day after my friend's funeral. So it was really needed. I needed it.
Yeah.
And I sat down with this lovely lady, and it was my first experience, completely virgin to this type of, I've never even been on a retreat ever, or a boys camp or a summer camp or anything. I've never done any of that stuff.
Right.
So this popped my bubble, and I actually, at the end of it, I had many revelations. I was woken up to a new part of me that I didn't know before. And so thank you for that, Lucie. We'll get into that more, but please tell the listeners something about your past, where you grew up and how it led you into being in the position that you're in today.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was delighted to host you too. It was a great day that we spent together there, the 24 hours. I grew up not far from Star of the North. I grew up in Morinville, Alberta.
Yeah.
It's just a 15-minute drive north. And in a very, spiritual family, deep spiritual roots and Christian roots. So raised Roman Catholic, French Roman Catholic. This is a French town. And that has served me very well. It's grounded me. It's kept me grounded. But I have had my bumps along the way too, and like anybody. And so I got married very young, and I had 3 kids. And during that time, I was married for 7 years. During that time, my mom at some point came to me and said, I want to pay for you to have a weekend retreat. And I didn't want it. I thought, I don't know if I want this, I wasn't sure at all. And so she did. And I said, oh, okay. She was going to look after the kids. And I went, and it was transformational. It really was. It was on healing and forgiveness. And it was a priest from Mexico that gave the retreat. There was about 40 of us there. And it was at Star of the North.
Yeah.
And I just sunk right in. It was exactly what I needed.
And you were 16, you said?
No, I married at 16. I married very young. So I was about 21 when I went on my first retreat.
Okay.
And my mom, or maybe a little younger, maybe 19 or something when I went, because I had 2 kids at the time. And yeah.
Got started early with family life.
I did.
That's good.
So that's how I got into it.
On your first retreat, probably like mine, what I was thinking was do I really need to take this time out for myself? It was almost like we're in some brainwashed state where we have to always constantly go, and as soon as we want to pull the plug and go do something else, or we get that slight inclination, we second doubt ourselves. Is that what you had at that time?
Exactly. Yeah, you think, well, what am I going to do there? And a little bit of fear about the topic, not sure where it was going to go. But it was very humanizing. It was exactly what I needed. Some space. You unplug. You don't have a TV. You don't have your phone. You don't have any of that. So you really have to take the time to go into that inward journey, that inner journey, and be in touch with God as you know God. And really retreats it's all about coming as you are, where you are, and letting God meet you there. And that's the start of the journey. It's a relationship. It's walking together with God as you understand God.
Yeah, and that was one of the opening things that Lucie and I talked about. She very like openly and acceptingly just said, "What is your perspective of spirituality?" And I gave her my like unfiltered perception of what I think spirituality is, and she like there was lots of similarities between her perspective and my perspective, and she pulled out some of the things that we had in common and agreed upon it, and she's like, perfect, so we're both on the same path. We're both doing good. We're both trying to live a life of love. We both try to help other people and be at an essential harmlessness to oneself and others at all times. That was a teaching that I learned from like some volunteer old Buddhist yoga teacher who came into the prisons. He would volunteer. He was super old. He's like 78 or something. He was still really flexible.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But so what was some of the training that you had to get to be where you're at today?
Yeah, so my journey started off with a B.Ed, a Bachelor of Education through the University of Alberta here. And I majored in English and I minored in moral and religious studies. So there you see that my inclination was definitely towards theology and spirituality, and I wanted to pursue that. I wanted to teach religion. I wanted to be close to it. I'm more interested in the relationships. Even though I understand the doctrines, I understand and I appreciate them and I value them. I think they are life-giving.
What do you mean the doctrines?
Well, I mean, you can get caught in the head with all the concepts and right? And I don't want to get caught in my head. I want it to be about a heart-to-heart thing with God. And even though I understand God as Trinity, I understand God as Jesus, the Father, the Spirit, I also understand that people are on different paths and I can walk with them. It doesn't mean I have to let go of my path. It doesn't mean I have to change my path.
You just meet them with empathy and compassion.
Right, and walk together where we are. God will look after the rest.
Yes.
Get out of the way kind of thing and let God, lead people where they are and to where they need to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the things that we agreed upon is that we both agree that there's something out there that's much greater than us that is running the show.
Yeah.
And when we accept it and just stop resisting, when we stop resisting, we connect to it and we're guided.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's going with the flow of the Spirit that is, and discerning. So you had a great topic on that retreat because it was about discernment. And it is discerning, what is that true spirit?
Yeah, so
the true spirit in me and the true spirit of God.
I think, what about our ego?
It can get in the way, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, ego development is important. We need to be strong. We need to grow to be confident in ourselves and who we are. But when it becomes persona related, or or we put on a mask and we hide our true self, and we can't be comfortable in our own skin, or we have to blow up, an image of ourselves and make ourselves more important than other people. That's where it can get in the way, right? It becomes harmful.
Competition.
Yeah.
Instead of cooperation.
Yeah. It's really not necessary.
No, cooperation has more longevity.
Yeah.
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 More staying power.
Yeah, and competition isn't bad either, but it can get bad when the cooperation community part is lost, right? So we know sports and all the good things out there that help people grow into healthy, well-rounded human beings. But if we get stuck where it's all about competition and it's all about getting money or getting things and get caught up into the consumer culture and a culture that destroys our planet, harms ourselves, and we're not really reflecting on who we are.
Yeah.
And we're not taking that time to reflect on who we are, to get away. And we say we can do that wherever, but the fact of the matter is we need places like retreat centers to do that. We need a place that's set apart that we can go to, and we're not going to have all those distractions weighing on us when we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Can tell everybody like about the Star of the North, like what it is, what their operations, what their services are, what's like your average day look like there.
Sure. I want to back up though, because I forgot to. I
Okay,
got totally waylaid.
Well, let's go back.
I went to get my MA, and that means a lot to me. I took a master's from Oblate School of Theology in San Antonio, so a shout out to them, because that was a wonderful experience. It was online. I live in Alberta, St. Albert, so it was an online for a lot of it, but it was virtual online. I was in the classroom at real time. So
like Skype?
No, they had their own form.
Okay.
I'm not even sure.
Okay.
We did use some Zoom, but
yeah.
other forms as well. And so and then I went on site for, intercessions. But that was really a great further grounding, because the Master's of Arts was in spirituality. So that really helped me to get in touch with what I needed, the tools I needed to continue with the work I'm doing. So the Star, as an operation, to get back to your question, is we have 58 bedrooms, and 6 of them are suites. So these bedrooms are not like hotel rooms. They're very modest. They have a sink and a bed and a desk and a chair. They're very comfortable. You would know.
It reminded me when I walked into it, like looked like my grandpa's bedroom.
There you go.
Like it had like a homey smell, like my grandma's house did.
Yeah.
It honestly, as soon as you walk in there, you just feel comfortable, like you're home for Christmas.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, like I was home for Christmas.
Great, because that's what we're after. We're after creating that, right? We're after creating an atmosphere of peace and hospitality.
And you have themed rooms, which next time I'm going for.
Yeah, those are the suites. So we have 6 suites. They have their own washrooms in them, and shower, tub, whatever.
And I think I seen like these huge solid wood, like carved beds or something. Like, did I see one bed that was like really fancy?
Yeah, all the rooms have some pretty nice furniture in them, and good solid beds. We've got a good place.
It's really nice.
Yeah, but definitely not a hotel, right? No TV, no extras in it.
Yeah, in that way, it was kind of like a jail cell.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, a cell isn't such a bad thing, because that goes back to the Desert Fathers and Mothers.
Isn't that what they used to call it, like in a nunnery or?
Yeah, they call them their cells. Yeah, or a monk's, monastery.
Yeah,
It's called the cell.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
So in Scripture,
for inner reflection.
It's exactly right. And Jesus said, when you want to pray, go to your inner room, your inner cell. Go to your inner room and shut the door, and there pray to your Father who hears you in secret. So the idea was it's an intimate relationship. It's not this, it's not a lot of rhetoric, and it's a personal thing. And so it's not even meant to be, it's very private. It's very private and personal at the same time as it's a communal thing. It's meant to be shared in community.
I have one question on that, where you said, Jesus said, go into your inner room and shut the door. Mm-hmm. And I just find that really ironic for me personally in my life today, because I had this conversation last night with somebody, and it was a very spiritual, deep conversation. And she says, I have a feeling, or like, I feel like when I do good in my life, it's only for brief glimpses, but I'll do really, really, really good. And then they said, and it's like a room. And when I'm in that room, I do awesome. But then I get locked out of that room for the other 95% of the time, and I can't get back into it. So for somebody that's like living everyday life, busy, has technology around them, everything, how do you suggest to them, in Jesus' words, get into that inner room and shut the door?
Well, now you've hit at the core of what this spiritual journey is about. We call it the contemplative living, or contemplation. Con means with. Template or temple is in the word contemplation. Yeah. So template, we're made in the image and likeness of God. That's how we're made. So we're a template.
Would you say we're like a microcosm of a macrocosm? Like we're just a piece of the exact same material as God?
Well, we're definitely a reflection of God, yes. I
Kinda
don't know how to put words to it, really, except that we're made in the image and likeness, because that...
Like a holograph.
More real than that, I think. More
Okay.
substantial than that. Anyhow, so contemplation would be, we say, how do you do this? For me, personally, and it is one of my favorite ways of teaching and training is to offer contemplative retreats. And it's about setting aside 2 periods a day, 2 20-minute periods a day in utter silence, letting go of my thought perceptions, and that includes everything from my emotional stuff, how I react, letting go of my images, of everything, just letting it all go.
How do you do that?
It's like watching clouds go by. You just let them go by. Or if you were on a river, you let all the stuff float by. You don't grab onto it. But if you're grabbing onto everything and holding on to all those thoughts, you can't go. You're bogged down with the weight of stuff that isn't even real.
Then you're being led by something else other than the source.
Exactly. So you let yourself go into the source, and the source guides you and takes you. The Spirit takes you is the language I would use.
Hopefully there's not a waterfall ahead.
If there is,
You'll be okay.
you're going to be okay. Yeah. It's really letting go and trusting, right? And it's not fearing death. It's not fearing, because there's a greater thing at stake. There's a greater love at stake. So it really matters what my choices are. It matters what I choose in life, because I'm here to reflect that image of God, to be the face of God in the world, and to hopefully create a good in the world that just keeps growing and flowing. To give my piece of good, however small or big that is not going to be the issue, because it's not a comparison or a competition. God loves us as we are unconditionally. My favorite teacher, master, just passed away on my birthday on the 28th.
He did that for you.
Yeah, Father Thomas Keating. And he's a Trappist monk who started the contemplative outreach. So that's another link to look up. But
Have you ever heard of Paramahansa Yogananda?
No.
Okay.
But you can tell me about him.
So he is one of the first yogis to ever come to America and introduce like yoga, not just as a practice, but as like a religion, right? And he has stories growing up in his childhood with his masters and their masters, and like it's very, very similar to the miracles that were created by these spiritual gurus in India, as what was written as a story of Jesus. Like very similar miracles,
Right.
Witnessed by a whole bunch of different people and everything like that. But it's his biography, and it's a remarkable book. One of the best spiritual books I've ever read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's worth putting on my playlist for reading, or my reading list.
Yeah, it was just a biography. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so Father Thomas Keating started contemplative outreach, and he's the one that's where I picked up this practice, 20 minutes a day, twice a day. He would say that's like your 2 antibiotics a day. It's like medicine. So it's healing, because God will heal us if we open ourselves to be healed. And God will move us where we need to be, grace us with the gift we need to do what we need to do. To let go of what we need to let go of that's harmful to us and to others. So it's really a necessary piece, I think, to be able to do what Jesus is saying there. Go into the inner room. So contemplation is go to being with the temple, in the inner temple with God, alone in there in that sense, but you're never alone. You're in this dance. In theology, we call it perichoresis. It's a dance that is the movement of the Spirit of the Trinity. So we say Trinity is community. God is community. God is not just one. God is 3. And we hold the paradox of that. It's not a contradiction. It's a paradox. And we hold that and we say, yeah, we can accept that. It's because it's reflected in nature, it's reflected in human community. We need community and we need our individual, growth.
Yeah.
We need both.
And we need a belief in something intangible.
Yeah, that's dancing with us and loving us and creating us and co-creating with us, or allowing us to co-create is what I would say, giving us the privilege of co-creating with God.
Yeah. I heard one thing before. The only two reasons why we're here is to procreate and create.
Well, there you go.
And I suppose that's one and the same.
Pretty close. Yeah, it is.
Wow. So that's definitely some good feedback. So when I talked to my friend about getting back into that room, I got some good feedback to give her. I'm going to get her to listen to the show. When I was there, first off, the food was great.
Great.
The food was awesome.
I'll tell my kitchen. Big
portions, and the kitchen staff were so lovely. I came in late. They're like, "Oh, don't worry." They pulled me out food and everything. They were so nice to me. They have the coolest coffee machine ever. It was like the Cadillac of coffee machines, and it made a wicked espresso. So we talked about the discernment on the journey of life. That was like the theme of my retreat. And when I first got there, we had a meeting for about an hour or two, right?
It was an hour, yeah.
An hour, okay. About my beliefs in spirituality. And then I had to do like some self-reflection, and you kind of gave me an outline of some literature to read and some worksheets to go through, just to kind of open my perspective and kind of show me where I was spiritually when I made big benchmark decisions in my past. Like, I was at a crossroad. I had to Lucie instructed me to find my own method on putting it in like a lineage or a sequence. And she gave me some readings to do out of these two different books, which I didn't write down, but that's okay. But one female author, one male author, about discernment and choices and their spiritual perspective and their relationship with God, these two authors. And so I read the chapters that she gave me, and I reflected on like different times where I really screwed up, and like where I was, what my actions were, what my intentions were, where I was in regards to my ego and my belief in spirituality at the time. And I contemplate, those were the things that I contemplated. Mm-hmm. And like the times where I hurt the most, the worst pain I've ever felt, and I correlated it all with a self-sabotage.
Right.
Like a form of, like a combination of fear of success, fear of failure, take myself out type thing. And that was just like the first night. The second day in the morning, I had more revelations, but we'll wait on that. I don't know if I'm ready to open that one.
No, that's fine.
We'll see. Mm-hmm. What types of staff do you have there? What types of activities do you have there? Because I didn't get to do much. Like, I know you have groups that go in and different like businesses come there, or
right.
social groups.
Mm-hmm. So there's two parts or two sides to our work. On the one hand, we welcome groups, particularly faith-based groups or spiritual groups, that come to deepen what they're doing. So it could be retreats. It could be meetings too. We do host meetings and conferencing, and we host faith-based school groups and other school groups, like just public school groups, to come and have their meetings at our facility. So they can stay overnight. They can have meals. They can just have a space that suits them. So that's the one side. The other side is we do our own programming. So we put together a plan for a year, usually a year or two ahead, and we try to provide spiritual program that can help people connect, just the way we're talking.
Connect to source.
Yes, and deal with whatever they need, their needs. So it should be a healing place, and it's different from a spa. It's not just about self-help. It's deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. It really is to touch into the spiritual in one's life and connect to a source. And yes, we offer our perspective, but we don't expect that it's definitely not in any way that proselytizes or tries to convince people or whatever. We offer our perspective.
That was a big word for me, proselytize.
Yeah.
What does that word mean?
It means, what's a way to say this? It's kind of like pushing one's agenda on people, where you
like preaching to somebody that doesn't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
There was like these two really nice halls. What were those halls? I was only in one of them just briefly.
The conference rooms. So that's where we host the groups that need space. So let's say, like right now we have Taking Flight International is at the Star right now, and they do some work training, trauma and grief training. There's other groups that come in and do training of their groups. Then they need a space, right? They need a room, a conference hall to do that. We have two larger ones, and that can fit up to, one can fit up to 50, the other one can fit up to about 80 comfortably. And then we have 4 small meeting rooms that fit 10 to 12, 15 max. Yeah.
When I woke up the next day, I went down for breakfast, and like I stayed up late. Like I was there on a journey, and like I cheated. I bring social media and stuff like that. So like I put everything away for a certain time. I did my readings, my stuff like that, quiet time, meditation, contemplation. But then I still did some work while I was there. But I also went for a walk in the graveyard in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And just I was just being. I just wanted to experience everything. I smelt the air, and it smells nice in St. Albert. Always smells good in St. Albert. Sometimes you're walking downtown Edmonton, it does not smell good. But I felt the leaves crunch under my feet in the middle of the night, and the air. It wasn't too cold or anything like that, and I just appreciated everything. I just felt like I kept saying to myself, wow, like I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. And it was tough because the day before I just had a really close funeral to me, and like not like I haven't lost too many really close people. I've had lots of people pass, but not somebody as close as this, right? So mm-hmm. I bring my friend's picture from his funeral, and I had it there on my desk with me, so he was there. And it was just a perfect way to experience real life, like not superficial life, not rat race, hustle and bustle life, to just be. And my favorite person in the world, hands down, I can openly say this, was my late grandma. She was my favorite person in the world. Always happy, always funny, just a huge go-getter. And I seen this old lady come down, little tiny thing, and just like vigor in her step. And I was like, look at the life in this person. And then she was talking with her friends at that Cadillac coffee machine. And they were like, oh, hey, you were up late last night. What time did you end up going to bed? She's like, I didn't go to bed till 3:30. And like, we were up pretty early. Like it was 8 o'clock in the morning. And, like this old lady just went to bed at 3. And like, I seen them, and I was up in the middle of the night. And like, I seen them with the lights on in this little room still at the front of the building. And I was like, what the heck are these guys doing in there? And then when I seen it, like, they were high on spirit. Mm-hmm. They had that pumping through them, keeping them going, and they were happy and grateful, and you could just hear it and see it in their voice and conversation. And like, I appreciated that. It reminded me so much of my grandma, just like the energy she had.
Yeah, well, I think that the space, because there's silence, and that's where I truly believe God speaks most, in the silence. And because there is silence, it can do two things. It can energize crazy, or it can really soothe and calm and heal. So it's between those two extremes, right? You might be up a lot of the night on retreat because your head is processing faster, because you're in the stillness, you're in the quiet, and you're realizing just how much you've been racing. And it takes, when I used to go on longer retreats, like a week, it would take 2 to 3 days to come down off of that race, and then to settle into a peaceful kind of, now I'm reconnecting with who I truly am and with God. I'm connecting at a much deeper and more peace-filled level. So to reduce anxiety, which I think we need a lot of in this world.
Yeah, I hear it almost every day. Oh, I get bad anxiety I'm talking to somebody and it pops up, oh, I get bad anxiety. I always say to them, I say, why do you choose to have anxiety?
Yeah. Well, and it's creating choice, right? It's about making choices that can help us get centered, be in our true self, and then live out of that more honestly every day.
Yeah. Somebody said along the way that if you don't lie, you don't have to remember as much. Then there's no point in being nervous.
Perfect. Perfect line.
So what is like the biggest thing that you get personally from your job? Like, how, obviously it's not work for you. Just like doing this is not work for Justin and I. Mm-hmm. Like, we love this. We love just sharing content and value and meeting cool people and having good conversations, and just, this is what we love. So it's very apparent to me that this is more than a job. This is a passion.
Yeah.
What is it that you get from this?
Well, it's hugely mutual. When I know that this has been on my journey, retreat work and my own personal retreats have been the sources that fuel me to go out and be in family life and working and doing other things in a way that makes me happier and calmer and more joyful, and that I can give that back to people, that I don't have to react when people have their stuff and they throw it at me. I don't need to react. I can let it go and hopefully send back something to them that gives them a foot up, so that we can. It feels. I'm so strongly passionate about the fact that we need places like this, whether we make them in our homes, like a separate room that we go to. A sanctuary. Exactly. We need sanctuaries. We need sacred spaces.
And rituals.
And teaching that helps us connect and grow and be that full person we can be, and be happy in the world. But not just happy so that it gives me what I want. Happy for the whole world and the planet. To really care about everybody and everything on the planet. And to make those steps that I grow with that. And I grow in community with that, and I grow with others. Because God loves this world unconditionally. I want to love it unconditionally too.
I concur.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like giving to the flow of life.
And I guess those were my more natural gifts. Maybe not everybody would enjoy that kind of work. For me, it's my natural gifts, and I think that's part of what this is all about. It's about listening to what's naturally in me that I can give.
I think in my own BS, my own belief system, I think that it's all natural in all of us, but in the act of living, we forget are who we are. In the act of living in this environment, this type of society, we forget.
Yeah, and we get trailed along with whatever the trend is, or whatever we get sucked into the current kind of thing.
Would you say, what's like the most memorable moment you have in like somebody's transformation? Like, without going into the details about them, but just about the experience.
Well, and that is a big part of it. Thanks, Kenny. Ground me. That is it. Oh my goodness, there's so many good ones.
Give a couple.
Yeah, I do. Some are stories that aren't necessarily, they happen at the retreat center, but they're not necessarily someone taking a retreat or anything. But I'll give you one that is retreat based, and I'll try to keep it as anonymous as possible here. So a woman came on retreat a few years back, and she was definitely grieving deeply. She had never been raised with any faith, any God, no God in her life at all. There was just, that wasn't part of her family upbringing. And she found herself in a real pit because she lost her husband, and she was trying to move on, and she had made a big move that was difficult, and so difficult because she felt isolated. She felt isolated and alienated, and like there was no connecting, which is so easy to happen. Our world is pretty, it can be like that, very kind of trying to keep closed off from others. And she was experiencing that and suffering in it. And so she ended up moving again and trying to find some stability, but she felt like she was just literally in a dark pit and falling. And she came to our retreat, and when she talked about all this, she said, I'm starting to feel a connection as though God is calling me, like God is there. So I'm finding myself praying in the supermarket, or I'm praying in places and I've never been raised to pray. And I sat there with tears in my eyes, because that's the God I believe in. This is a God in Scripture who says, I'm going to leave the 99 who are well off, who are okay. I'm going to go after the one who's lost. And I'm going to carry them on my shoulders. I'm going to carry them. That's what I felt about this person, that God had found her, and she was acknowledging that and opening up to it. And there was no environmental reason to do that, but here she found it,
She found a connection.
A relationship that she started to develop, with God. And
with what atheists would say, an imaginary friend.
Sure.
But that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's an imaginary friend. I read in this one book, the guy is long dead, something awareness. I think the guy's name started with an N. He said that God is our imagination, and that is the creative ability of the creator. We are the creators. And through our imagination, whether it be with a dialogue with this imaginary entity, or just with creating images and ideas and ideals in our imagination, that the more often we hold that image or conversation, it will come to pass.
Again, that I would find a caution with that for me personally, because for me it is a relationship with a real being. It's not an imaginary thing at all, and I'm not God. I'm an image, a reflection of God, but I'm not the source of life. So to keep it in myself, to be humble in myself, I'm always connected to the fact that there's a much greater, beyond my imagination, beyond concepts. That's what the contemplation does too. It removes all of my imaginings about it and my thought processes about it, and allows that space to be much vaster.
So, like, we have
and greater
some internal dialogue that's not good.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have some thoughts that are not good.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is those type of thoughts and imaginations are not God, are not this loving source of energy.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, it's very, I really believe that God came as a person so that we could relate personally, because that's what we need. We need a personal relationship. I need to see a face, and that's what I love. I don't love an abstraction or a concept. I love a person.
Oh,
right.
Jesus was just a personal trainer just of his day. Now I'm a personal trainer, so I'm just doing Jesus's work now. Sweet.
He'd probably go with that.
Yeah, he'd take that. I'm going to perform miracles on your body. That's a selling.
No.
That's a selling feature. I'm going to sell that with my personal training.
Well, Jesus, when he met one of the young lawyers on his journey, he said, the lawyer said, "Good master," and he said, "Why do you call me good?" He said, "Only God is good." See, even he would deflect, and that's not to say, because I do believe he was God. That's a different, conversation. But I do believe Jesus was God, come to incarnate to reveal to us the fullness of God's love, compassion, unconditional love and mercy, and healing and grace. And you read about Jesus, and there's no judgment, he refines life so that we get the fullness of happiness out of it, and takes away all that darkness that would, be self-destructive and be harmful to others. So he reveals the true living that we need. So he would deflect anything that, like, don't go and tell them that the Messiah has come. He would keep that. People wonder, well, why would he keep that secret? I don't know. Why would he keep it secret? Because it's not something...
Loose lips sink ships.
It's not something to boast about, right? It's something to live, not something to boast about. It's something to do and live and be.
Yeah, I agree with 99% of that. So we're good. We're on
there we go.
The only one thing that I like to change is that we all have that ability to be just like Jesus was, and that he had God, the God particle in him, but as do we. Yeah. As do we.
Good. He did say, "You will do greater things than I." He said that. He said, go and make disciples everywhere. He said, "You will do greater things than I." So.
That's awesome. So at the retreat, like, I had the theme, discernment on the journey of life. What are the other themes, and like, what do they involve?
Some of our retreats are more about healing. Some are about addiction awareness and addiction, healing from addictions and recovery. Some are about prayer and how to enter into that relationship more deeply, more honestly. And some are about discernment. I think that pretty much, we have a lot that we're trying to do more on with integrity of creation. So we're trying to do a lot more with integral ecology, knowing that God is revealed in all of creation. We say the second book of nature, the second book of Revelation is nature, is creation. It's actually our primary book. It's the first book that came along. Creation was always there to be revealing God to us, and it still does. If we watch it closely, it's revealing the nature of God's sacrificial self-giving of life.
The Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, what's that one?
It's kind of like how everything grows out in spirals, and all those different mathematical things, how they all grow in that one thing where the first and second column together equal the third, and then then the second and third column together are the same size as the fourth, and it keeps growing and expanding like that, like seashells.
Yes. Like that, The spiral is the perfect image of the journey. Yeah,
that's a Fibonacci sequence.
Oh, thank you.
There's lots of cool stuff about that.
There.
Yeah.
And we do, I think another passionate area of ours right now is the whole truth and reconciliation follow-up calls to action. So we're trying to bring ways that we can come together, dialogue, be in encounter with one another, and heal together, and really find ways to overcome the suffering that's been created by so much racism, by so much misunderstanding, colonialism. I mean, I could name so many things.
Colonialism effed everything up.
Yeah. Didn't it, though? And it's easy to look back, though. I always say, people will say, well, that was then. That happened back then. I wasn't part of that. Well, yeah, it could happen again because I can't admit that I could be part of something like that. And I can be part of something like that. That's what happens when I don't take the time to grow in my own self-awareness and in humility to understand that I could easily go astray and become one of those conquerors.
Well, when colonialism happened, there was a lot of injustices, and it was in the past, and we don't need to. I believe it. We don't need to dwell for the word dwell on it, but definitely learn, and we are on a learning path, and we are starting to make systematic changes. But the systems that were set in place had flaws, but then every system has flaws. And really at that time, the individuals doing that were only doing what they knew, and they did their best, just like you and I do what we know and do our best today. So that's my way of copping out of my mistakes of the past. I was only doing as much as I could with what my levels of awareness were. Yeah. And as our levels of awareness grow, well, with knowledge comes responsibility, and then we have to make different choices. But the new systems now that are in place, I find that there's still a lot of flaw in it, and one of the big things that perpetuates the problems is language. Language. What's your take on the power of words?
Oh, I totally believe that words matter, and sometimes it's hard because you don't want to get into such political correctness that you lose realness, that you can't even talk about anything, because we are learning by listening, right? We're learning by listening. If I think that if we can learn to listen more and speak a lot less and hear what others are saying to us, really listening to what the concerns are. And it's interesting you should bring that up, because yesterday I was listening to CBC on a drive, and it was to do with allyship. Allies, because this is a language in the Indigenous, and in this dialogue between Indigenous and the whole colonial thing, where they're talking that kind of language. And I heard this speaker say, she was an Indigenous woman, and she said, "No, we're not interested in allies, because that's." She said she would prefer a language that said co-conspirators. And I like that. I really did like that, her take on it, because conspire means to breathe together. And I liked her, it's with and spire. So it's conspire, it's to breathe together. It's to work it out together rather than to get into these divisions of us, them. How do we come together and be together as a human as human beings? Doesn't matter what ethnicity, race, culture, religion we come from. How do we be together and grow together and love one another into a better community life, a better civilization, something greater for our kids to look forward to?
Spark the right questions. Ignite the right groups, like put together the right people, and create the right programs that are going to help people. Yeah.
So for instance, November 8th, we have Marie Wilson coming, one of the commissioners. She's going to come and talk about breaking new ground together. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build those conversations like this one, and to keep talking out the issues, because we don't just land. This this whole notion of allies, I'm still open to conversations about it. I want to hear what people are saying, but there's new stuff coming forward, and we've got to be open to that all the time and listening. What's the better language? What makes it work so that we can work together and heal together and grow together and forgive together? Because there's going to be needing a lot of forgiveness to heal.
Wow. I really like that. Co-conspiring means breathing together. I always had a different feeling about that word. Had like a negative, like they were co-conspiring to rob the bank.
Well, it can, right? Any word can have a negative or a positive feeling. So the words in themselves are neutral. It's how we apply them. It's what spirit do we give the word, and our word, my word. So what spirit do I give my word?
So our feelings are our spirit.
They're in there. They're not just, but it's not just feelings. It's beyond that, I think. It's bigger than just our feelings.
If you were to classify different things like feelings into spirit, what else would you put in there?
It has everything. It has our intellect, it has, but the most important piece it has is that's God to me. I use spirit language as God language. It's the creator language. God is the source. And if God is all goodness and creator, then that goodness and creator in us comes out.
I feel like I'm the happiest when I'm in the midst of creating something. If I'm creating something, I'm happy.
I think most people feel that way. And if we're not, if we're just in a routine work or situation where we're just acting out of routine or patterns that we learned in the past, but we're not growing into something new and fresh, I think we start to die inside. And that's a lot of a source of depression, I think. I think it's a lot of source, like what gives us life? What are we doing to give ourselves life?
So like this retreat is basically a form, if somebody wants to call it, therapy. Without the doctor's jargon.
No, that's great. Father Keating called it the ultimate therapy. It is. It's a healing therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your personal favorite retreat that you went on, Lucie?
They were in Colorado at his at the St. Benedict's in Colorado, 10-day silent retreats. We had. We saw videos of Father Keating, and he would come, and so did the abbot. Both these two great men, Abbot Joseph of Colorado and Father Thomas Keating, passed away this past week. 5 days, one on the 25th, I believe, and one on the 28th, or the 21st and the 28th. Anyway, and they were both there when I went on these retreats, and very welcoming, and the level of spirit in that valley, like they're high elevation in the mountains in Colorado, just outside of Denver, a couple hours out of Denver, and they're 10-day silent retreats. You're not talking to anybody. You're just but you are meeting with people. You're in group situation, and you do the centering prayer, which is that contemplative prayer of 20-minute sits together in a circle about 3 or 4 hours of it in a day. So you're doing a lot of
energy work.
Yes, of letting go, surrendering
into. At these silent retreats, is there like a director that talks to orchestrate?
If you want it. Okay. Otherwise, we would have a 45-minute video of teaching.
Yeah.
Of wisdom teaching on that tradition, on the Christian contemplative tradition.
Oh, okay.
We'd have a 45-minute teaching from Father Keating. It was a video.
Yeah.
And meals and just beautiful nature. And we would also go to the monks. We'd walk down this road, and then the monastery was right there. And we'd join them for their prayer and their Eucharists, and beautiful encounter there.
I heard a theory, and I don't know if that's all it is, but that in the years that were missing out of Jesus's life in the Bible, like from however young until he was
Right.
a carpenter,
Right.
that he was living with Buddhist monks in the East.
Wow.
That's what I heard. And then
it would all be pretty much speculation unless it's in scripture or in some kind of writings somewhere.
Well, that just came to me because you said you were at a Christian retreat and they had monks.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of similarities.
There is.
There's a lot of similarities.
And there are still some distinct differences too, but it's all good.
You know what? Like, I had such a good time, Lucie, like even on the show and on the retreat, and I appreciate you, and I connected with you so much, and you helped me a lot. And I really suggest anybody go check out the Star of the North. The Star of the North in St. Albert, Alberta. Sorry, that was my watch. And or contact them. They have Facebook, a whole bunch of their website. You want to give your website a plug?
Yeah, www.starofthenorth.ca.
Okay, and is there anything coming up on the Star's agenda for November and December?
Well, November 8th, like as I said, is the Marie Wilson, Breaking New Ground Together, the Commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So she'll be giving a talk in the evening that night. And other than that, we have a retreat with Ron Rollheiser. He's an oblate, so our center is an oblate center. And he's coming from San Antonio to give a retreat weekend, December 1st, 2nd. We also have a big fundraiser coming up, November 30th, and we'd welcome people to come to that.
So there's lots of events going on.
Yep.
There's lots. So I suggest you call Lucie Leduc at the Star of the North, or go on their website or Facebook. We're out of time, so to wrap up the show, thank you, everybody. Please subscribe and share to all your friends. If you enjoy any of our content or the shows, get it out there to your friends. Hopefully they can connect to something, and it can provide value for them as well. Our website, www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com, has all our shows, blogs, and ways that you can contact us personally through a message. Please give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. We want your stories, bios that tell us about you. It's something significant in your life. And by doing that, you're part of the tribe.